A.K Ramanujan was a passionate craftsman, was an extremely careful craftsman, an extremely meticulous craftsman, and he always chose titles for his poems with extreme care. As a scholar, as a teacher, he was keenly aware of the crucial role played by the title of a poem in the thematic structure, in the stylistic structure of the poem. And so he almost never, in fact, he never chose titles for his poems casually or carelessly. The point I'm trying to make is that the poem under discussion has a very deliberately chosen title through which the poet attempts to convey certain things very deliberately, very consciously. A.K. Ramanujan was a very disciplined writer of personal diaries. And when you read the personal diaries of Ramanujan, which have now been published, you come to understand that A.K. Ramanujan rejected, emphatically rejected, the Sri Vaishnava traditions of his family as a very young man. This rejection of the Sri Vaishnava traditions of the poet's family resulted in generating in the poet certain ambivalent attitudes towards the poet's mother. In all probability, the poet's mother symbolized, stood for, signified in the mind of the poet the Sri Vaishnava traditions which he emphatically rejected. And part of the rejection of the Sri Vaishnava traditions is the effort of the poet to distance his own mother, who is a symbol of the traditions, from himself. This rather long title succeeds in distancing the speaker's mother from himself, even though the speaker's mother is the central figure of the poem. This distancing of the speaker's mother from himself is achieved by scattering the thematic attention of the poem from the speaker's mother to the entire class, to every member of the entire class to which the speaker's mother belongs. And further, by placing that class among other things, by proclaiming that the poem discusses the class to which the speaker's mother belongs, but only inter alia. Let us start reading the poem. I smell upon this twisted blackbone tree. What is blackbone tree? This is probably a reference to the ebony tree. Perhaps the poet has in mind a specific ebony tree in the campus of the University of Chicago where he worked, or some other university like Harvard which he frequented. I smell upon. The poet has provided the poem with a very sensuous opening. I'm sure that John Keats would feel envious if he heard this opening, if he saw this opening. I smell upon. Ebony has a marvelous smell, a smell which is woody, spicy, warm, enticing, enthralling. I smell upon this twisted. The ebony tree, this particular ebony tree is twisted. Usually, care is taken to ensure that the tree is straight. That is what happens in the case of trees like ebony or rosewood or teak, which are grown commercially in plantations. But here, the ebony tree, the blackbone tree, is twisted. Probably the twisted ebony tree, blackbone tree, is a symbol for the speaker's mother, whose life itself has now become twisted, whose body itself has now become twisted due to old age, due to the ailments accompanying old age. I smell upon this twisted black bone tree. The poet smells upon the tree something. I think that if you don't want to read this passage too literally, well, I think you should refuse to read this passage too literally, because you can interpret this passage to mean that the poet says that he remembers. While looking at an ebony tree, while looking at a blackbone tree, the poet remembers. Or if you want, you can take the words at face value, and say that the poet smells the tree and finds upon the tree a particular smell, a smell that reminds him of something or something. What is that something? The poet clarifies. The silk and white petal of my mother's youth. The poet is reminded of the youth of his mother. His mother was once young and beautiful and soft, and see how effectively, but also how indirectly, subtly, the poet speaks of the beauty of his mother as a young woman, the softness of her body as a young woman. I smell upon this twisted blackbone tree. I think I said the twisted. I should have been more careful. This twisted, one particular blackbone tree, probably an ebony tree, which is twisted, reminds the poet of his mother, who in her youth had been extremely beautiful. Or you can interpret it literally to mean that the poet smells the tree and the poet is reminded of his mother as a young woman. The silk and white petals of my mother's youth. From her earrings, three diamonds. Diamonds, diamond ear studs, are very much part of the typical Brahmin, Tamil Brahmin women's jewelry. The Tamil Brahmin bride is usually given, especially when she comes from a rather well off background, is given a pair of diamond ear studs when she is married. Here, the poet smells the particular black bone tree, and the magical smell of the tree reminds the poet of his mother in her youth, and reminds him of the fact that she wore brilliant diamonds. She had brilliant diamond ear studs when she was a young woman.